Hey everybody, welcome to the second story that I'm going to be giving you. And it starts in 1985 when my father, who was a captain at the time, was stationed in West Germany. And at that time, the exchange rate was really good, so officers, before they came home to the States, were buying Mercedes or a BMW, a Volvo, or a Saab. Well, my father bought a Volvo 240. Consequently, when we came back to the United States, my dad had that car for many, many, many years. We took it on all of our family vacations. My sister drove that car in high school and college. And then came the day when my father passed away. My father was killed by a semi truck when he was going on to his job on Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. Prior to this, we had been a member of the VCOA Club, the Volvo Club of America. I talked about my two-door in the previous video. Well, my dad had the 85 still on top of his daily driver, which was his Volkswagen Jetta. After my father died, the 85 Volvo became mine, and it went through many different phases. I now live in Iowa, but when I lived in Kansas, the car got some 740 turbo wheels, got a few suspension upgrades. All the while, it held a lot of significance to me, more than any other car, because it was my father's. Cut to living here in Iowa. I kept the car up. I actually loved this car. This car was more important to me than probably any possession that I have ever owned. I worked for a school system up near Des Moines. Well, we had a student who had decided that he was going to do some graffiti work. He went outside and he wrote a very large swear word into the side of my car. Now, mind you, I don't have a lot of money or resources. So what I did was that winter, I went on the internet and I saw something about roll painting a car, like you would roll paint a wall. Well, I decided I was going to give it a shot that spring, and sure enough, the silver Volvo went to flat white. I chose flat because flat reflected the sun, didn't reflect the sun, so people would be able to see the car, not the scratches or the imperfections. Well, that starts the period of the car really being mine. I think after I got the car painted, I had been listening to the song Proud to Be an American by Lee Greenwood, and the video that I saw of the music made me think of my car, and the fact that my car was flat white. I don't know why, but it reminded me of a piece of paper. So I went to a local vinyl shop and had them print out every one of my family members' names: my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and my brother-in-law, their ranks, all of their service, and I put that on the passenger door of my car. Consequently, throughout the time that I owned the car, people would come up to me with stories about their child or their husband that either passed away in Iraq or just old age, and they asked me to put their names on the car, and I did all of it, and I paid for all of the vinyl myself. Well, one day I was out by Lake Red Rock, which is near Pella, Iowa, where I live, and I saw a gold Volvo 740 Turbo, and it had a for sale sign on it. And of course, being me, I called the number. Did I need another car? Of course I didn't need another car, but I called the number, and it turned out to be a guy that lived out in Oskaloosa, about as country boy as you can get. And I went to his house to talk to him. Turns out that he used to work for a Volvo dismantler in Tucson, Arizona. He did that for about 15 years. So his stockpile of parts was unbelievable. Plus, he had a super rare 242 GT. His wife drove a V70 wagon, and at that time I was driving an 850 wagon. So they invited my fiance and I out to the house so that we could eat dinner. He and I talked about a great different number of things, and he stated that he used to do motor swaps, where you would take the motor of your car out and you would put in a different motor. So I was like, yeah, that's fun. Yeah. Well, turns out that he asked me if I wanted to do that. And I said, what's the catch? And he said, I would be willing to do the motor swap with you if you can find me a 244 turbo. And at first I thought, yeah, that was a 5-year only car. That's going to be impossible. So we talked more and more, and I happened to be looking online, and back where I used to live in Leavenworth, Kansas, at a local pawn shop, and I'm not making this up, was an 84 Volvo 244, the sedan, turbo. So I ended up going all the way down there with him, bought the car for $1,300, and we drove it back. Right after that, the following Saturday, he says, let's go to the salvage yard. And we went to the salvage yard in Newton, Iowa, and there was a 740 turbo car. We pulled the motor, the intercooler, the turbocharger, all of it, and took it back to his house. Now, over a period of many months, we tore the motor down, rebuilt the motor, put some performance parts on it, got a brand new turbocharger for it, and we swapped it into my car. Many sleepless nights. And in the end, I ended up having something better than any 740 or 940 turbo that they produced. Well, it's a funny story, but we were out there barbecuing by the car one day, and he had a 4-year-old little girl named Abigail. Well, Abigail came up and said, we had driven my 85 Volvo wagon, and she said, where's Turbo? And I said, huh? And John had told me that she had decided that my car's name was Turbo. And little did she know that that would become the car's name for the rest of its life. Well, that car ended up like, it was unbelievable. I had a 4-speed manual transmission with a lockout overdrive, and it was incredibly fast. Plus we put springs and we put sway bars on it, so it handled incredibly, along with Z-rated tires, so it really stuck to the road. Well, being in my driveway, somebody ended up coming up to me and saying, that is a really cool BMW. That happened more times than you realize, because I had switched the front end of the car from the square headlights to the round headlights. Well, they said, have you ever put this car in a show? And I said, at a car show? This? No, I don't think so. Well, I had been going to car shows for a very long time. And of course, when you go to a car show, you have that thought in your head, what if I had a car to put in the show? Well, they said, why don't you do that? So, my father-in-law has a very rare color 2000 Firebird, and we took that car and my car to a local show. And it was so much fun, and the reception I got for my car was incredible. You would think that a car that was painted in a driveway and had a motor swap that was a Swedish car, nobody would care about, but everybody loved it. So when we got back, I started talking to my friends. I have a friend that has a 98 Camaro Z28 convertible. It's a really great car. It's the kind of car that would work well on the show. I had a friend that had a 93 GMC, the same as the Chevy S10 Blazer. Had the sport package on it with all of the side skirts and the bigger wheels. So I said to them, have you guys ever thought about bringing your cars to a show? And they said, no. Well, I talked them into it. And then after that, maybe 2 weeks later, I talked to my friend Joe, who's into Honda Civics and the tuner community. He came with us. Never saw such a group of cars come into a car show, you know. You have a Swedish Volvo 240, an American muscle car, a tuned-up Honda Civic, and a Jimmy, followed by a Firebird. We'd all park side by side. Now, we started to do that routinely. We'd go to different shows, and, you know, you're not planning on winning anything. It's just the camaraderie of all the people at the show. You would be able to answer questions about your car. You would be able to ask people questions about their cars. My friend Heath, who owned the Z28, one day said something that really kind of got to me. Somebody said, wow, you guys have done a lot of work to your cars. These are really nice builds. And Heath said, Actually, sir, if we want to be honest, we've done work to our cars and we've tinkered with our cars, but the only full build in this group is that Volvo. And later on I told Heath, you didn't have to say that. And Heath said, no man, you've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but more importantly, you put heart into this car. Well, one evening we were in Monroe, Iowa for a car show that was also a big barbecue. And when the show was over, like always, you sit around with your group and you wait for them to call the awards out. And of course, you never think you're going to win when you're driving like I said, a driveway painted Volvo 240. Well, all of a sudden, they called my name up. And I didn't realize because I wasn't thinking, and my friends told me to go up there, and I had won top 10 in this car show. And it kind of solidified all the work that I had done. And all of that work became, something that other people enjoyed. And I got to film my trophy with some of the kids, because of course the kids are important to me, and the kids help to work on the cars all the time. And my father-in-law, believe it or not, won for his Firebird the exact same night. And we have pictures of us together with our trophies. After that, we have been to many different car shows, many different car shows after that. And 2020 came, and of course we all know the pandemic and everybody being stuck at home, which meant, of course, there were no car shows, there were no get-togethers. That was kind of hard on a lot of people. So I spent a lot of time in my garage working on the car, trying to do a few things, and still haven't figured out what happened, but we were removing the oil pressure gauge and something sparked, and I watched the entire wiring harness of my car, in the engine, everything just turned bright red in an instant, and I had to hit it with a fire extinguisher. Most people would say that sucks. Well, let's order new or go to a salvage yard and get a wiring harness for it. I had a 30-some-year-old Swedish car. There's no wiring harness at the salvage yard. And it was bad. It was real bad. It went under the dash. And I'll tell you, I've never felt so dejected in my entire life. Never. Well, that winter, I had to make a decision. I loved the car more than anything. And I've had so many little kids learning how to turn a ratchet and hear the click-click sound, or helping to wire up gauges, or helping to air up tires and change oil. Friends working on the car with me as I worked on their cars, and we shared the experience. But as I looked at the engine bay, I knew right away that if I could ever find one on the internet, that was going to be a lot of money. Now, that was a hard realization. So I sat on it for a couple of weeks and didn't do anything. I was very depressed, as you might think. So, might guess. So one day I just decided that I had to make a decision, and I decided to call up a place that was local called Doug's Four Wheelers, and they took scrap cars because there was nothing I could do. I couldn't afford to fix this Swedish car. And what happened was they brought a semi out with a flatbed, and they already had a few cars on it, and Turbo was the last car they were going to get. I had already taken a DA sander, a round sander, and I had taken off all of the names of all of the troops, just because that was respectful. I didn't want that car sitting in the mud and having people's names on it. I had never had the car out in the winter. That car was the family car, so of course it saw winters, but after I did all the rust repair, that thing hadn't seen winter in 18 years, Well, it was just so that the car got taken in the middle of a snow. I have pictures of it going on the flatbed. Well, even though we were dealing with COVID-19, two of my friends, the one with the Blazer, Matt, and my other friend Heath, came out and they stood with me when they took the car away. My friend Matt walked to the back of the garage and he started tearing up. And my friend Heath, who did 2 tours in Iraq, and you'd think he was a pretty tough guy, big guy, 300 pounds, he started tearing up. And when they took Turbo away, I didn't say anything. I don't think I did anything but go to put some tools away. And Heath came over and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, going to the car shows, there was always like 6 of us, but in reality there were 7. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I know you feel bad right now. He said, but I gotta tell you, Turbo wasn't a car. He said, to us, we had cars. He said, the Camaro is a car. The Blazer is a car. Joe's little Honda is a car. He said, but Turbo was never a car. Turbo was a personality. He said, you always think that when we go to these car shows, everybody's drawn to us because of a Camaro and a Firebird, but that is totally not true. They were drawn to us because of your car. And he said, that's why Turbo has never been considered a car. It's been considered a personality. And he goes, you've done a lot of good with that car. And, losing that car was probably one of the hardest things I'd ever done. But, when I look back on it now, I can imagine how many people at the car shows came to look at the car. I had a lady in Pleasant Hill, Iowa, asked me to put her son's name, who passed away in Afghanistan, on my car. So I did. Well, her and her husband go to local car shows because they have a car to show. She came over, she saw her son's name, and she gave me a hug. And that car touched so many people. I have so many pictures of kids washing the car or wrenching on the car. I have pictures of the whole group standing next to the car, and I'll always have those memories. And when you get a car, I just got to tell you, don't plan on it being forever. It's very seldom you see that guy that got his first car at 16 and he still has it at 45 years old. That car is probably going to be gone someday. Well, Turbo is gone. And that winter, I didn't do anything. I ended up sitting on it. And then in the spring, my friend Joe came and got me, and I got myself the car that I'm working on now. It's a P71 Police Interceptor. And I've already won a trophy with that one the first summer that I had it. So you just got to remember that at the end of the day, not everything can you keep, and not everything will always be there, but you will be able to move on, and you will be able to find something else. And the goal with that is to see how many people you can bring in together and how many lives you can touch with the new car that you get. Well, I hope this second story was something you enjoyed. I hope you tune in for the third one. This is Salvage Yard Stories.